What's your biggest challenge right now in your real estate business? I just posted this question in one of the largest real estate mastermind groups on Facebook called Real Estate Mastermind. It's got over 250,000 of people in there. And so I love posting questions because we get a lot of really fun answers. Now, I think we know what probably some of the top challenges are, but we're going to go through that list today, talk through it, give you guys some of our opinions, and see if you resonate with any of those. My name is AJ Ackerman.
I'm Mark Ammons.
And we are Elevated Agents. All right, so you ready for this?
I am. Hey, and so I haven't read any of these, so this is kind of like a pure reaction video. AJ posted this, I don't know, yesterday this morning. And so we've got a lot of answers on here. And so we're just kind of bounce through them. But this is my first time hearing or seeing any of these responses. So I'm curious to see what I think and whether you guys agree with some of these. AJ says there's some fairly funny ones in here, so we'll hit those too.
Well, no. So what's really cool is I love this group because it's a great group to just find out what other agents across the world are thinking or saying.
I'll link down in the description to this page if you want to join. Again, there's 250,000 agents on it, but if you want to join and kind of get involved, AJ is very active on this group. So I'll link down in the description below if you want to join and chime in on yourself. It's
super cool. So there's some great answers on here. There's some funny ones. There's some very sad ones. There's some very real ones. Now, one thing I want to make sure that we understand, and we'll do another video another time, is, the typical challenge that we hear people talk about are, how do I get enough leads? Time management. Oh, what do I do about this current market? There's a lot of things that are going to come up for you right away. But what's great about these kind of groups is that you learn about some other things and you can hopefully get some answers from some other people. But then you always got the one or two jokesters out there, right? That just like to, what do you call those? Trolls?
I think so.
I don't know if they call trolls. I wouldn't call them
troubled
trolls.
souls.
I would never do that. But I'm just going to go in order. We literally had no plan. And so the first one is, I've had more difficult transactions than any year before, but this is the busiest I've ever been. So I guess it's a fair trade-off. I don't know what the challenge is, but it sounds like it's pretty exciting that they're growing. What are your thoughts on that?
I guess difficult transactions, and I get that too. And so my response to that, if that is a struggle that you're feeling, is like you're having a lot of difficult transactions. There's a really funny Netflix stand-up comedy. Her name is Taylor Tomlinson. She has this joke where she's like, when you're in the car on your way to work and you're in the lane and the traffic stops and the next lane next to you is moving and you move over and then that one stops and then this one's moving and you move back over and then that one stops and you move back over. At a certain point in time, you just have to go, is it me? And so what I would tell you is if you're constantly having difficult transactions, there is a certain point in time where you have to kind of look at the situation and go, is it just me? Am I making things difficult? So that could be one solution, is like look at the energy that you're bringing to the transaction. And if you're bringing bad energy to the transaction, there's going to be a lot of bad energy spread around. So I love that could be one thing.
That's really good advice. You attract who you are. If you're getting a lot of people that are really difficult to work with, you're probably difficult to work with. I mean, there's a lot of truth in that, because again, if you're really nice and easy to work with, those people are going to be most attracted to you. And at some point in your real estate business, as you grow, like in the beginning, it's kind of like, I'll take anything. I'll drive 2.5 hours for my first listing, right? But as you grow and you build, you can start niching down. You can start being more picky about who you work with. And so
you should get to start being more picky.
Yes, I know I definitely did as I was getting busier, because there are levels to this game, right? Your first level is 0 to 12 deals, then 24 and then 50 and what have you. And as you grow, you're gonna have to make some changes. So I think that was a really good one. The next one I think will be really cool. It's actually Kristen Smith. I'm naming names anyways, because we know Kristen. The Air Force stopped moves for those that didn't have orders in hand by August 1st. That has affected several of my sellers and buyers. So obviously she's near a base, and since you're kind of like, that's kind of a market condition type scenario, right?
Yeah.
Like
things that are happening in the market or with your buyers that are outside of your control. I mean, that's what you were talking about with bad market conditions. That's the same, like that answer is basically the same as like, hey, I had buyers that were pre-approved at a 5.5% interest rate ready to buy this house, and then boom, rates jumped up to 6.25%, and they no longer could finance the house, right? Like, you're put in a bad situation from something that you really didn't have any control over. And there are certain times, and there's a certain point in time too, and I think some of the answer to that is instead of look for solutions, try to get creative, but there are certain things that are just going to be outside of your control, and the best thing that you can do is relinquish that feeling of control. And I think sometimes we get stressed and we get anxious about things that are happening that are outside of our control when we truly don't have a way to control the outcome. And so sometimes the answer is as simple as, that's life. Maybe there's something good that comes out of this, but don't let it. What I would say the answer there is, don't let it affect the rest of your business. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're part of the solution or you're part of the problem, and markets are going to shift. They're cyclical, right? Real estate is a cyclical business. I've been through a whole cycle now. I started when it hit the bottom, and now I've been to where it's topped, and I've been to now where we're in this transition stage. So this is a perfect example of that. Market conditions happen. Listen, we live in Southwest Florida. We had the worst hurricane ever, flooding. Our market conditions changed for quite a few months. Unfortunately, right, we had this horrible tragedy in Maui recently. That's been one of the challenges that we're in there about, like, what do you do when your whole town burns down, right? I mean, that's a market shift. Now, you have to adjust and you have to deal, but part of that is life. But part of it is your attitude as well. And so if you're out there telling everybody about, my gosh, I don't know how anybody would buy anything right now. The interest rates are so high. I would never buy anything. Well, guess what? Nobody's going to buy from you because you're out there selling them. You're selling them the concept of not buying instead of coming up with the solutions and coming up with why would somebody buy right now? Listen, are people buying houses right now?
Yep. All day, every day.
All day, every day. There are always people buying houses. There's not as many people that are buying, and that presents an amazing opportunity. The opportunity right now for agents to come in and steal market share is huge. I want you to hear me very closely. When I got in the business, it was the bottom of the market. Everybody said, what are you doing? Why are you getting into real estate right now? The average home price is $75,000, and half the homes are foreclosures and short sales. Don't tell me.
Locks trying to break it.
I was about to say, don't tell anybody. We used to carry around a screwdriver as one of our tools back then, because literally you had to get into bank-owned houses. But we want to make sure that we're staying positive. And so instead of complaining about the market, look at the market, understand what's happening, and become an educator. Educate people about what's going on, and then figure out, what can I do? Be willing to pivot, right? Yeah. A lot of times we have to be willing to pivot, especially if you catch yourself saying the same thing over and over and over again, then it does become you, not the problem, because problems are going to happen.
But Kristen's awesome, and she's going to,
Kristen's awesome.
She's the person who will figure out the solution to this problem. Yeah. So that's awesome.
I got one, getting clients that want to go all the way through the process. If I should have just said getting clients that want to go all the way, that would have been, I should have just stopped right there. Getting clients that want to go all the way through the process and close. Getting people to close. That could be a challenge for newer agents for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, and part of that is qualifying. Part of that is qualifying the people that you're working with earlier on in the process, if that's truly the case, and that comes through truth and vulnerability, and asking the questions that might be a little bit more uncomfortable to ask. And I think that is probably what's leading to that, is being afraid to ask uncomfortable questions early on enough in the process to get them to then respond to you truthfully. And so that's what I would, if that's a struggle that you're having, I would tend to tell you that that's a problem that has to get solved way earlier in the process. If you're trying to get someone halfway through the process that was never really interested in taking it all the way, the likelihood of you changing them is not very good. But if you can spot that earlier on, which with the right questions, you can spot someone's true intentions early on if you ask the right questions. That would be my, I think, suggestion on how to address that, is ask harder questions earlier and really dig in and really figure out the why. Figure out, why is someone moving? What's the future promise? What are they hoping to get out of this? And so I think if you ask those questions early on, I did this a lot when people would be making these really life-changing moves halfway across the country, downsizing, get rid of half of their, like, things that can psychologically really keep people from coming back. So the thing that you want to key in on early is the why. Why are you making this move? Why is this important? What happens if you don't make this move? And what are you hoping to get out of it? And once you know those things, if you can remember those, when you find someone who starts to lose sight of that themselves, it's very easy for you when someone's like, I just don't even know if this is worth it. And it's like, Well, remember we talked about, how nice it's going to be for you to be able to walk your granddaughter to kindergarten after you make this move. And I understand that there's a lot going on right now that is making this uncomfortable, but let's not lose sight of what's on the line here and what's going to happen after this finally does come to a successful conclusion, or whatever the case is. But if you can learn their why and their true intention early on, you can keep coming back to that, because people need a reminder. We forget, we get caught up in the day-to-day life of like, oh, I just never should have done this. I just never should have even thought about moving. And it's like, you did it for a reason. I just need to remind you why. That's the solution.
This is such a cool piece of awareness from leveling up, right? So as agents level up, there are things you're going to learn that you wouldn't have learned if you weren't doing the work. And this aha moment of like, okay, I get people to contract, but how do I get them to close? You just woke up and realized that there's a process to real estate. It's the relationship process. If you want to get paid, you need to have closings. If you want to have closings, you need contracts. If you want to get contracts, you need appointments. If you want to get appointments, you need people, you need relationships. And becoming a master through that cycle will help you level up to go through. So I thought that was a great awareness piece. Yeah. All right, we're going to do a funny one real quick. So I'm not going to use his last name, but Keith said, hoping my customers don't get upset because every time they call me, I'm on the boat. Do you have that problem?
Hey, I don't know, but I want to hang out with this guy, right? Like, he's living life right, man. And that's the problem to have. We were talking too, and some of the problems that we're talking about, that's not a problem. He's being funny, and I like that. Because there's a lot other comments that AJ was telling me, it's like where a lot of it's more work-life balance of like, I'm having such a hard time balancing my work and life. It sounds like Keith has got it figured out because he has clients and he's on the boat. So I can relate to him. I love Keith. I don't know who you are, but God love you, man. Keep it up.
That's awesome. And you're gonna like the next one. So Matt said, myself, I'm the biggest challenge. Anybody relate with that? Are you getting in your own way? Are you the person that you need to finally look in the mirror and be like, okay, where do I need to take personal responsibility? That's actually, what's funny? I love that honesty and that simplicity of that answer, because when you ask people what their biggest challenge is, what's the first thing they do?
External.
They blame everybody else.
It's this, it's that, it's my broker, it's my team leader, it's
the
market, it's the leads, it's all of these different things that we want to blame externally. And the whole time, it's us. It's our mindset. It's the way we're thinking. It's the way we're viewing the market, right? And so, there's a couple different ways. There's a couple different ways to view the lack of inventory and all of that stuff. Like AJ said, is it's about your mindset. And one of the unique things about life in general is that it's never crowded at the top. It's never crowded at the top. If you're the best at what you do, it is not crowded up here. Where it's really crowded in life in general, no matter what business you're in, is at the bottom. You've got 90% of the people fighting over 10% of the business. That is super, super competitive. So if you're hanging out down there, yeah, it does suck. And the only solution is to fix yourself and to level up your skills. And so, if you're not learning a little bit more today about what it is that you do for a living, there's someone else who is, and that person is going to be taking a little bit more of your market share, and then the next day and the next day and the next day. And so that truly is a solution. And I would say that he's got the answer because whoever that was has the answer, and that they understand it's themselves. And the problem I think that most people have is that they never realize that that's the actual answer to all of this. That's probably the number one answer is yourself. What's the number one struggle?
Yeah.
Me. It's you. I don't mean this to be negative about you, but it's you. You are the problem in the way that you're approaching it and the way that you're viewing it. And when there's no inventory, well, what's the upside to that? Why could that be a good thing? How could you use that to your advantage? How could you maybe be the leader and educate your buyers on the best way to get the house they want in a market where there is no inventory? Does that set you apart from the other agents? Is that going to make it more likely or less likely for you to get clients? If you can teach people how to navigate this difficult market, maybe that's the place for you to go and add that value. And again, it's not crowded at the top, but it's very crowded at the bottom. So find a way to level up your skills, and a lot of these other problems will magically start to disappear.
You know what I love about one, I think everything ends up coming down to what are you going to do about it, right? When you say, what's your biggest challenge right now in your business? And you say, lead generation. I need more leads. Okay, great. Well, your broker's not responsible for giving you leads. I'm just being honest with you. You're responsible because it's your business. You're an independent contractor. Now, if you joined with a team or you joined with a brokerage and they're helping supplement, right? They're helping you get started. They're helping to supplement. But ultimately, if you want to grow a business for the long term, you're going to want to do it and build it for yourself, because guess what? Things happen. lead systems fall apart. People die. People quit. People are untrustworthy sometimes. Like, things are going to happen. And if you don't have your own systems, and I'm here to tell you, I've built systems and then those systems fall apart because another company merged with them and bought them. Like, literally, things happen that are out of our control. And so we always have to, like, it always comes down to, what are you going to do? What choice are you going to make? What action are you going to take? So I do love that too. Armin, follow-up process. Why can't sellers and buyers just sign the agreement from first touch? Well, I think you got follow-up process right. I think a lot of people struggle with follow-up, the struggle with follow-up is people just don't do it. People don't realize that it takes a certain amount of touches. You invest all this time and all this money in lead generation, and then you call somebody once, they don't answer, and then you never try again. Like, I highly suggest just look up the 10 days of pain on Google and just see the concept of understanding that your first job is to follow up for as long as you can until they just respond to you, right? Because the average agent only calls once. And then the average agent, like, actually, it's the average agent. Yeah, 90% of the people only call once. It's the top 10% that actually call twice. And then it's the top 5% that call 3 times. And most of the deals are done on 7, 8, 9 touches, right? So follow-up can be a huge challenge. The problem is you're just not doing it.
I want to touch on that to maybe put it in a little bit, offer a little story here. So the very first sales job that I had was working for a transitioning military recruiter, and it was really cold calling. It was inside sales with a little bit of outside sales kind of mixed in. So most of what I was doing was cold calling. And so I was an account executive, and my job was to call companies who needed to hire people and find military veterans that had the skill sets they were looking for. So there was a lot of just cold calling, engineering managers and hiring managers and HR people and all that. And so our COO at the time, he was like, hey, if you call this person X number of times, whether it's every 30 days, every 60, whatever, eventually we know this percentage of people will do business with you. And so he'd look in our system and realize, it's like, well, you haven't called this guy in 6 months. What's the deal? And it's like, well, because Tim, I called him every single month for, the first 6 months. And I just, it's like, if I keep calling this guy, he's going to get so sick and tired of hearing from me. He's never going to do business with me. And so a lot of us think that it's like, well, if I follow up this person too much, they're just never going to want to do business with me. And he goes, Mark, that's exactly, he's already not doing business with you. That's what's happening right now. So he's already not doing business with you. He can't do any less business with you from calling him more. And he's not going to start doing business with you just because you leave him alone. So that's the thing to think about as well, is all the people that you feel it's like, well, if I follow up with them, I'm just going to bug them. They're not going to want to do business with me. They're already not doing business with you. That's the current scenario. So keep it up.
Yeah, let me give you a great mindset to work with. When I first got in the business, I was completely broke and I was cold calling. That's how I started my business. It was free. I got literally a big old stack of papers with phone numbers and I was just calling. And the way that my mindset was at the time is that I just want people to like and trust me, because if they like and trust me, I want them to think of me when they think of real estate. So everybody to me was a client, whether they knew it or not, until they told me, no, don't ever call me again. That's polite. Or, right, they said they already hired an agent. Other than that, they were going to work with me at some point in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years. I literally had people that I had cold called that worked with me 6, 7 years later. I would get a call and be like, hey, AJ, we're ready. I'm like, what? Like, this is amazing. And so the only time that you give up is when you give up on yourself. So there is going to be a discipline here of following up is huge if you want long-term success. Not some more interest rates. A lot of people complaining about interest rates. You guys got to figure out how to get past that, because you're your own worst enemy right now. And you know what the funny thing is? The people that are complaining about interest rates right now are also the ones that complained about whatever the negative thing about the market is.
Interest rates are 2%, and there's houses, and I'm getting 37 off.
They're complaining about multiple offers.
Yeah, I'm getting multiple offers, and it's just too much. I don't have time to sort through them. And now interest rates are too high. So again, maybe it's just you. Yeah.
And a new agent posted getting their first listing. Huge challenge, right? Getting your first contract is a huge challenge, but I love the fact that they were focused on some advice on getting your first deal.
Don't stop till you do. The hardest, because that's the thing, right? The hardest, I'm trying to think of how long it took me to get my first deal. It was a while. And that was the hardest one you'll ever get, is 0 to 1. Like, that's the biggest jump, right? 1 to 10 is way easier than 0 to 1. because you just have to prove to yourself that it works. And that's once you can prove to yourself one time that like, oh, if I do the right things consistently over time, I get the result, then it's just doubling down on that and rinse and repeat. You just have to figure out how to do it one time. That's it.
Yeah. And a lot of people are talking about needing listings right now also. So interest rates and inventory being low, right? Everybody wants listings, and you should want listings. I think it's really important. I do think it's important also to have a balanced business. I always had anywhere from 50 to 60% in listings. That's always the way that my business grew. And it's great because your buyers are just listings later if you continue to follow up. So listings, huge mindset here. If you are trying to get your first deal or you're trying to get listings, that is a great focus, where instead of focusing on a lot of different things, if you just focused every week on Monday morning, you're like, okay, my goal, my target is to get one listing this week. What needs to happen for me to get that? Your mind is going to explode with thoughts and ideas. The problem is, are you going to accept them, right? Is it going to say, you need to go knock on doors? Is it going to say, you need to send out mailings? Is it going to say, you need to call people? Whatever it tells you to do, that's what you're supposed to do. Don't negotiate with yourself and talk yourself out of doing the thing that you need to do to get the listing, because I don't know if you realize this, but in the average home price in America is probably around 300 and something thousand, right? So if you did one deal a month, that's $3.5 million per year, right? $3.5 million in sales per year, something like that. I'm just throwing out a number, $4 million a year. Did you realize that at $4 million a year at 3%, what is that? 4, 8, 12, it's $120,000 before your splits. That's 3 times the average income. One deal a month. Do you believe in your heart that you could get one deal a month? Then why aren't you? You aren't, because you're negotiating with yourself. You're talking yourself out of doing the simple things for a long period of time. Huge factor with challenges is like, whatever. We're gonna read through a few more and then we're gonna stop. But the reason this question is so powerful, and the reason that we ask it in our mastermind group every single week, in Elevated Agents, our mastermind group on Facebook, we ask this question: what is your biggest challenge right now? It's because that biggest challenge is what is holding you back. And that challenge could be something in your life or your business. The majority of people aren't successful because of something going on in their life, not because of their business, right? It's that distraction in your life, that thing you haven't handled, that communication you haven't had, the relationship that's not going well, your financial situation. Like, you guys, that sometimes it's the thing you need to work on. Your health, your energy. You know, the majority of people are eating and drinking like crap, and they're not moving and being energetic. And that's why you have no energy in the day to do the things you need to do. And that's why your brain isn't working, right? Because it's not functioning the way that it's supposed to function. That was like a quick version of that. And so it's really important that when you ask this question and you look at it and you break it down, now you got to start doing the work. Talk about taking action, would you please?
What I would say is, as long as you're putting in the level of action at which point in time it would become unreasonable for you to not be successful, like when you're doing that, you will be successful. And that's the threshold, is the level of action at which point in time it's unreasonable for you to not be successful. There is a level of action at which point, if you just do this enough, literally you will get just lucky, dumb luck, and fall into it at a certain level of action. And so that truly is the answer, is just more action, more input, more contribution, more value. Are you adding value, right?
Every day.
What is income? Right? What is money? Money is a store of value, right? What is profit? Profit is when what you the service or the product that you deliver is worth more to someone than their money, and so they give you money, and the amount of money that you got exceeded the amount of input it took you to create that product or that service. It's all an exchange of value. So when you want to earn money, what you're saying is, I want people to compensate me for the value that I have delivered. If you're not adding value, it would be unreasonable to expect to earn money, because money is a store of value. Someone is giving you the value that they have stored up through their action and their efforts, and they're giving it to you for your efforts and your action. And if there's no effort and there's no action and there's no value, there is no money. Like, that is how money works. Is it's a store of value, and you add enough value to enough people, they will start to reciprocate that value back to you in the form of money. That's how you earn money. You add value and you get compensated for that value. When you buy something, you're saying the value that this thing is going to give me is worth more than the value it took me to create, to earn the money, to trade for that thing. That's all we're doing, is we're just trading value. I put my time and energy in, and I get to store this value up in the form of money. this thing is worth a certain amount of value to me, and I'll give you that back in terms of that. So that is, if you're not making money, it's because you're not adding value.
Yeah, well, and I think there's a question that a lot of agents don't ask. This is the question that agents aren't asking. How long is it realistically going to take for me to succeed in real estate, for me to get my first deal, for me to double my business next year? How long do you think it's going to take? Well, guess what the answer is? I have no idea how long it's going to take you. What I do know is that this is a front-end loaded business. The way that I look at it is, it's going to take me as long as it takes me. I am not going to quit until I figure out the action steps and stay consistent and add so much value that eventually the result happens because of all the action that I took 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 3 years. It all stacks. It's called stacking habits. It's called stacking value in order to get the big results for the long term. And so some of this, people just need to keep doing what they're doing sometimes and not quit and not switch so much, not change everything you're doing. We're going to end this with a couple funny ones here. So what was his name? I forgot his name, but he said boxer or briefs. I like that. Sometimes I think to myself, is it underwear or no underwear? No, I'm just kidding. I like, this was my favorite. This was my absolute favorite one of the day. What's the biggest challenge right now in your real estate business? And Eddie said, my wife says I can't do OnlyFans. I'm like, well, will you let her do OnlyFans? Like, what's the deal there? How many of you are doing OnlyFans as a supplemental business right now? No,
Market's changing, man.
That's funny. Well, I think we hit all. One person said sleep. I'm not getting enough sleep. Find hardworking agents to recruit. Ain't that the truth? The actual inventory, lack of inventory, interest rates, my headspace, constantly thinking of all of these things above. You guys, there's a lot of challenges in the world. And I think it's important that we end with the fact that, guess what? They're not going away. The challenges will continue to come up at every level that you reach. The question is are you brave enough? Are you courageous enough? Do you have the strength to face the biggest challenges, to break through the challenges? Because the habit of breaking through challenges is one of those habits that will set you free, right? I call it truth and vulnerability. It's time to get truthful. It's time to be vulnerable. It's time to finally look at that challenge and say, enough is enough. I am ready to break through this challenge because I want to break through and see what I'm really capable of doing in this life and in this business and become the best version of myself.
Believe in the process. Believe in yourself. You know, belief is a very, very powerful thing. And when we have a strong enough belief that the actions that we're putting in will lead to the results that we want, that is the magic. That is the magical thing that a lot of people are missing, is they're putting in the actions, but they don't really believe that the actions are going to get them there. You know, so often we downplay our own abilities and we look at other people and think that something about them must be special or different because they're getting the kind of results that we want, but it has to be something special or different about them. It's not. You have the exact same power, the exact same ability to do the exact same thing. You just have to believe that you're capable of it and believe that the actions you're putting in are going to lead to the results. And if you do that, you will find over time that you'll prove yourself right.
Yeah, and thank you. That was awesome. And if you guys liked what you saw, if you had a good time with us today, if you learned something today, please do us a favor. Subscribe below. We're going to keep adding value. Our goal is to help you elevate your life, elevate your business, and help you eventually get to the next level. And if you ever want to meet us or set up a Zoom call, you can also do that here. We would love to get to know more about you, your business, and see what we can do to help you out. We love you guys. Have an awesome day.
See you next time.